Hi everybody, this is Tom with another video, and today I'm going to be talking about my Worlds 2020 Pick'ems, because as you may know, every year that the League of Legends World Championship comes around, Riot hosts a contest where you can basically predict who will win each group, who gets second in each group, third and fourth as well. And there's some competition here because you can directly compare your predictions with friends and your points as well. You can win prizes actually. They also do the Pick'em stage for the playoffs, which you'll be able to unlock later and give your predictions there. And if you predict the playoffs correctly and the groups correctly as well, like 100% each team, each place they'll finish in, and also the results all the way to the grand finals, and predict the winner correctly as well, you get the 5 ultimate League of Legends skins. And I think this year they also added like a PC gear or something, like a cool PC setup, which you can win. While those chances are extremely slim, it's still fun to do, and I just wanted to share my predictions with you guys, give some thoughts behind my predictions, and yeah, I'm curious to hear what you guys think of them, so definitely let me know. So let's pull up the Pick'ems sheets. There we go. Alright, that's how they were loaded for me, so these are not my predictions yet. I'm going to be adjusting them as we speak. Let's go to the Pick'em page. So let's start with Group A. I think many people will think that G2 will advance from this group pretty easily, and I do think that they will as well. However, G2 is a team that needs some time to warm up, as we have seen last year, for example, when they lost to Griffin, and also in a tiebreaker match they got second. Still, they made it all the way to the final, so they recovered later, but it's definitely a team that needs to warm up, and that's why I do think that they will advance, but I actually think they won't make it out as first. Who do I think will make it out as first? I think it's going to be Suning, the third seed from the LPL. If you've watched the play-in stage, I do, like, you won't be too impressed by the LPL just yet, but we'll get to Lgd Gaming a bit later in Group C. I still think that Suning is a step above, and I think that, you know, they have the right tools to make it work from the get-go. Whereas G2 is a lineup that needs some time to warm up, I think Suning will be able to compete from the very beginning and put on a good performance. Now, this means, you know, that I won't be putting Team Liquid or Matthiesen Esports first or second. And while I do think that Team Liquid had a pretty impressive performance during the play-in stage and came out strong, I still do think they're just a class below the likes of G2 and Suning. I think that they may be able to take a game of Suning, for example. You know, it's a double round robin stage and they play each other twice. So I think that's something that could happen maybe. But in the end, I don't think that they'll be able to trump the likes of G2 or Suning consistently. Matthiesen Esports, the PCS representative, is, you know, PCS had a strong showing as well. You saw that Psg Talon with 3 substitutes even was able to outclass many strong playing teams. But in the end, it's even though Machi was definitely like a dominant force in the PCS, they 3 out the finals against Psg Talon. You just have to consider the scope of a group stage and the power level, the resources all these teams have. So, you know, I do, maybe they'll be Team Liquid once. I think G2, as I said, they need to warm up, so maybe G2 can actually be trolling a bit against them. But in the end, it's going to be... so let me adjust this. I think it's going to be... Oh man, this is going okay. There we go. Suning first, G2 second, and Team Liquid third, and Matthiesen Esports as fourth. Then we get to Group B, and Group B is obviously an incredibly strong group. We have Lgd Gaming and Lgd Gaming, 2 tournament favorites, you can easily say. We have Rogue, who were impressive in the LEC in the playoffs, where they easily defeated Mad Lions. May not be the greatest performance in light of their playing stage of the Mad Lions, but they also took G2 to 5 games. So they are definitely not a weak contender at all. And remember that this is a best of 1 scenario, where Rogue managed to thrive in the LEC Summer Split. they figured out how to abuse this best of 1 format, figure out a style to consistently beat their opponents, and they made it work. They finished first at the end of the regular split. Obviously, in the playoffs, they eventually dropped down to being the 3rd seed, but Rogue has some advantage there. Now, talking about Lgd Gaming, I think when many people think about the LPL, they will be talking about top esports because they look incredibly strong. They have an incredibly flashy mid laner in Knight, who is said to be the best mid laner in the world at the moment. So I understand that sentiment. Still, Lgd Gaming took them to 5 games in the summer split. They won the spring split. They've gone toe-to-toe with top esports. I think whereas top esports has maybe individually like slightly better players in key positions, I think Lgd Gaming has a better team play. Again, the margins are small, but I think that's where Lgd Gaming is slightly better at. So Lgd Gaming is actually more of my tournament favorite than top esports is to win the tournament. Incredibly strong team. You have Zoom in the top lane, like phenomenal top laner. You have Kanavi in the jungle. It's crazy what this team is gonna do. So I definitely rate them highly. Then we have Psg Talon as the third team at least on this list. I don't think that they're gonna be able to do much. In the play-in stage, they looked incredibly strong, but they had 2 substitute players who were especially important in their performance. They had Kongyue in the jungle and Uniboy in the mid lane. Both of these have now been replaced. There's River in the jungle and Tank in the mid lane. And I actually think that Psg Talon is going to be worse because of it, because the Kongyue Uniboy synergy was so incredibly strong. They're so powerful for Psg Talon in the play-in stage. I have high doubts that Psg's full lineup can match that performance. That's not to say that they are bad, not by any means. I think Kaiwing was an incredibly strong support player, maybe even the best support player in the play-in stage overall. So they might be able to get a win here and there, but I do think they will end last in their group. And then we have Damwon Gaming, the favorites from the LCK. Incredibly clean gameplay, incredibly clean drafts as well. And if you look at their performances, it's the undisputed best team in the LCK at the moment. Had a tied record for best splits in the history of the LCK. So imagine in the current competitive environment where all teams are leveling up consistently, that you still are able to be so dominant that you tie for the most dominant split in the history of Korean League of Legends. That is obviously incredibly impressive. So looking at the rankings overall, I am gonna place Lgd Gaming as first. I'm gonna put Damwon Gaming as second, Rogue as third, and Psg Talon as fourth. I do think, I hope, obviously, as somebody who's followed the LEC all year long, and definitely is my area of specialty, I would say, I hope Rogue is gonna surprise everybody, gonna come out swinging, and gonna be able to match Damwon Gaming, take games of JD, and in that sense, surprise everybody. I really doubt that they're going to be able to make it out of this group, because the individual skill on these top 2 teams are just just something else. But they've surprised before, so I'm not counting them out at all yet. I just think that based on international experience, based on how they've played in their own split, in their own region, I should say, that Lgd Gaming and Damwon Gaming have an advantage. Then we go to Group C, which is the group where many people would say that teams are closest to each other in terms of skill. I think so too, but I don't think it in a good sense. I think all these teams in Group C have definite flaws that you can point at, that they need to iron out in order to compete for the title, if they are even capable of doing that at all. That means, though, that you have a very competitive group. if one of these teams has been able to figure out the flaws that they suffered from during the regular splits in their own region, I think any team that does that has a very easy time in this group. That said, there are some levels heading into the tournament that are definitely, you can see definite differences just in terms of overall skill. And when it comes to this group, you also have to account for that potential that if these teams iron out their flaws, how high would you rank them? So based on this, looking at Gen G, you have BD and Ruler, who are, in my opinion, the standout players on this roster. I think they are going to be able to pull it together most. I think that they have an environment where they can learn quicker from their mistakes and are able to accept which mistakes they make and learn from this. So I put Gen G as first. Actually, that's already correct. Thank you, Riot, for putting it there and saving me some energy. Fnatic, obviously not a team that did very well in the LEC Summer Split. They barely even made it to the playoffs. They almost missed out on making Worlds altogether. It's a team that is fundamentally dysfunctional in the way it operates, in my opinion, because you have two conflicting styles in your team. You have Reckless and Nemesis, who want to play it safe. You have Bwipo and Hylissang, who want to go in and fight. And you have Selfmade, who wanders off in the jungle. I think this is something that Grabs pointed out very eloquently in an interview I did with him about Fnatic. Now, that doesn't mean that I count Fnatic out quite yet, because I think Fnatic is a team with exceptionally skilled players. Individually, these players are all capable of competing on the international stage. Don't get me wrong. It's just that in the way the team operates, for years now, it's been, okay, well, we'll make it work in the end. You know, when it matters, they are able to put aside their differences and they are able to come together and play as a team. But I think that's a very risky strategy heading into Worlds. I don't think they'll make it far, but I do think that they'll make it second. And it's mostly because of the other teams in the group. We have Lgd Gaming, who coming over the plains looked incredibly poor. Everybody thought that they would be doing well because it's an LPL team. And man, did they not live up to the LPL hype at all. They almost even were, eliminated from the tournament as first team in the tournament overall. And yeah, they somehow managed to turn it around when the best of fives came around and when it mattered, but they still look incredibly flawed. You have Peanut and Kramer, who to me stood out in the play-ins as weak links in the team. Just inting, sometimes like overstepping, not playing, according to what their team wanted to do. So I actually think LGD will finish fourth. And yes, we have arrived at TSM. I'll put this correctly now. I think TSM as a lineup is incredibly promising, and I do hope they prove me wrong with the prediction I make, because all these players on the roster I think are exciting. Doublelift is an incredibly talented, and it's a legendary player in League of Legends, right? It's somebody who's been around for years, continues to want to fight for the trophy, and won't give up until he has it. Theoretically speaking, because chances are slim at this moment. But in the mid lane, you have Bjergsen, legendary European mid laner. I think in the top lane, Broken Blade is very gifted. I think maybe not many people would think of TSM and think, like Broken Blade, he's a stand-up player, but I think he's pretty solid actually. So what my issue is with TSM is that every game they've played in the LCS Summer Split playoffs, where they eventually won, impressively, they had to fight all the way through the lower bracket because they lost early against Golden Guardians. That neither of the games, none of the games they played, it felt like, okay, none of the series, I should say, okay, TSM is really dominant. They really know what they have to do. They really know how to punish their opponents in every situation, and they are able to capitalize on their mistakes that other teams they faced make. Now, that is not a big problem if you are playing in a region like the LPL, where you have world titles contenders on so many levels. But I think in a region such as the LCS, which it like competitively is just not as highly ranked as other major regions, because you see like drafts and item builds and stuff like that. It has its own culture, obviously, and every region does it. But you can, like, if I can see that mistakes are being made, then there are definite mistakes that are being made, right? So, I think for TSM, the biggest struggle is finding how to punish the mistakes that European, like a Fnatic or a Gen G will make, because I think that they'll have a tough time figuring out how they should punish it, whether it be in the draft or in the game. I think that Fnatic and Gen G have more experience and are better trained, I suppose, in figuring out which mistakes the enemy has made and how they punish them. Now, as I said, I do hope that TSM prove me wrong, because I think that'd be an exciting storyline, and making it out of groups is something that not many people maybe expect to happen. But if there's any group it can happen in, it's probably Group C, and I wouldn't completely be surprised if Fnatic doesn't make it out. But if I have to judge overall, his history is not a good way to judge it necessarily, because last year's Fnatic played in a different group than they are doing this year with a different lineup, and but still, if you just look at recent performances, look at how these teams have been operating throughout this year in this formation, then I give the edge to Fnatic. Now, Group D. Group D, it's it's interesting, except for FlyQuest. I'm really sorry, NA, because I think Top Esports is easily the undisputed favorite. Champions of the LPL, have an incredibly stacked lineup. Like, you have 369, who is in contention for the best top laner in the world. You have Knight in the mid lane. You have Jackalov in the bot lane. It's mind-blowing how talented this lineup is. As I said earlier, compared to Lgd Gaming, I think they're a little bit worse when it comes to playing as a team, but individual skill is just through the roof on this roster. And I think when I look at any of the teams in this group, they will just outclass them, even if it's just on individual performance. No contest for me. I think it's a clear favorite, and yeah, let's just put them right there already, because that makes life a little bit better to see Top Esports at the top of the group. As I said, I don't think FlyQuest is gonna put up much of a fight in this group. And that's mostly because I think they're inexperienced when it comes to playing against the international teams. You have a roster that is not weak, like, individually by any means. I think they have decent players, comparatively. Like any of these lineups have at least decent players, but I think FlyQuest, it's fine. I think they might be able to take a game or two here and there, but I think they will not be able to trump the likes of Top Esports with ease. I think Unicorns of Love is a better team than FlyQuest. You see that in draft adaptation, that Unicorns of Love, I think, will trump them. And when it comes to DRX, I think it's raw individual skill that will outclass FlyQuest in this group. So, unfortunately, FlyQuest, I'm gonna drop you down all the way below. I think your initiatives when it comes to helping the environment are fantastic. Please keep that up. We need more of that in the world. But I think in this group, you're just gonna have too tough of a time. Now, the discussion between number 2 and number 3 in Group D is really interesting to me, because I think DRX, obviously, like, fantastic roster, right? You have Chovy, even like somebody like Korea, who's a rookie, is a standout support player on this roster, but like really left his mark on the LCK this year. Their biggest problem is something like the draft phase. Notoriously, if you look at people on Twitter like LS, for example, he will continuously pop off about DRX's drafts and how poor they are, and even to a point where I can see that their draft approach is just wrong. So Coach CV Max definitely needs to adjust this, but also Jovi has 1v9'd DRX to the second seed of the LCK. So it's really, it's him who has stepped up. Maybe like in a way kind of similar-ish to G2, where Caps carried them like for the most part of the summer split. But I think DRX had it all the way through, where until the end you could see, okay, this is the Jovi show, and that's what they have to rely on largely. Now, how do they compare against Unicorns of Love? Well, I am definitely on the Unicorns of Love hype train. I am really enthusiastic about the way they play the game. I am happy to see them be flexible in the draft, which I think is something they have an edge over. In like, and not a small edge, like a huge edge over when it comes to facing DRX directly. And they are not scared to play aggressively. The team fight is good. Sometimes they get a bit too excited. I think when you look at the match they played, for example, against Psg Talon, you could see that sometimes they're a bit too eager to find fights, but whenever they feel like they have a chance, they'll go for it. It's an aggressive playstyle, I agree with. They're not, as I said, they're not scared to have pocket picks, and that's why I actually think that Unicorns of Love is going to be the second team in this group. Put them right there, and will advance to the quarterfinals. Now, it is maybe not something that everybody expects to happen, but when I look at these teams overall, I think Unicorns of Love is in the like motion of the tournament already. I think they have the synergy in the team. They have the advantages. I do hope to see a strong DRX, because I think when all the players on DRX are activated, they are definitely like maybe even like semi-final material, right? But I think in the shape that I've seen them in the LCK is just not there, and I think Unicorns of Love will have an edge over them. So those are my predictions for the League of Legends World Championship group stage. My pick'ems. I'll link them on Twitter as well, and I'll link them in the description below as well, so you can see them. And I think you can compete against them. I still have to figure out how that works directly. But let me know what your predictions are as well. Link them in the YouTube comments, and I'll take a look, and share also where you think, why you made them. I'm very eager to hear people's arguments about this, because it's obviously, it's obviously all a bit like up in the air. It's all discussing about most variables that we don't know yet. We don't know in which shape these teams will show up. So let me know what you think will happen in the group stage. And yeah, as always, stay tuned for more content.